The digital nomad. The idea you can sit behind a beach, sip cocktails by the sunset, and live this perfect lifestyle. Jumping from country to country, Airbnb to hotel. It sounded like the perfect dream. Until one day, everything changed. What if I told you that behind the aesthetic travel vlogs lies a deeper and darker reality that most of you may not be ready for? The loneliness, the financial anxiety of watching your savings bleed dry, the feeling of being trapped in an airport because you can't even fly back home. As someone who's left the UK 3 years ago, I've seen it all. And I've seen a difference between those who succeed and those who fail. And one thing I can confirm is that the digital nomad dream is coming to an end. And with rising global instability, we need to prepare for the worst. Now, there's this huge myth being perpetuated about moving to the global south, whether that's going to be South Africa, South America, Southeast Asia, that all of your financial problems are just going to magically disappear because the cost of living is cheaper. Now, whilst the cost of living is definitely cheaper than London, I can confirm that for sure, it is going up, and it's going up fast. For example, Lisbon, Portugal was once a digital nomad paradise, and it was so close to London, I was even planning on moving there. But now, the average rent prices in Lisbon has more than doubled in the last 5 years. And it's becoming unaffordable, not just for the locals, but for the expats themselves. Imagine leaving a country where you're trying to escape the cost of living crisis, just to move to another country where you have the same thing, just in a different time zone. Even in Kenya, where I'm staying now, in Nairobi, the cost of living in Westlands has gone up by 30% since COVID. It doesn't matter where you go in the world, where you go in the global south, prices are increasing. Global inflation is not just a Western problem, it's a systemic problem. It is happening everywhere. And that's why if you don't have a predictable, a solid way of making money online, your savings will eventually run dry. It doesn't matter if you come with 50 grand, 30 grand, 20 grand. I've seen people come with their savings, don't have a predictable plan, or just come here and try to figure it out, and eventually their savings run dry. Now, if you've been following my channel for a while now, you'll know I'm a big proponent of currency or geographic arbitrage, which is all about earning in the pound, earning in the dollar, in the euro, and transacting in weaker currencies. But currency arbitrage isn't going to print money out of thin air. Before you move country, you need to make sure you know how to make money online. I've been able to make money online long before I moved to Africa, compared to some people which will move country and then try to figure out as they go along. Now, of course, some people do succeed, but some of them, and a growing majority of them, are back on the EasyJet flight back to London Gatwick Airport. So if you want to sustain this lifestyle, you want to live a nomadic dream lifestyle, which I think is overrated anyway, but if you want to do that, you need a remote source of income. Now, in most of the Western countries you go to, there's going to be a rise in jurisdictional enforcement. Now, most of the nomads that travel to these countries don't really make that much money online, and those who do, they're able to fly under the radar for years and years and years. And I know, especially in places like Africa, especially Kenya, the tax enforcement is quite lax. They don't really regulate a lot of the expats who come here, maybe because it's not as popular as a place like Thailand or not as popular as Mexico. So they don't really have much of an incentive to do that. But if there is now a surge of people now moving to Kenya or moving to South Africa, I know in South Africa, SARS is definitely very aggressive when it comes to tax enforcement. But a lot of people do actually move countries and they fly under the radar and everything is perfectly fine. But if you are a wealthy individual, or at least you're aspiring to be wealthy, you do need to know about the tax residency rules. Now, in most of the global south, there is a 183 days residency rule, meaning if you stay longer than 183 days in a tax year, you are going to be classified as a tax resident. Now, I do know there are some people that move country and they pay no taxes. They are just flying under the radar, right? If you want to do things the right way, you're probably going to have to look at splitting your time between 2 different countries. So for me right now, I'm splitting my time between Kenya and South Africa, which is another amazing place to like to live. For you, it might be Thailand and the Philippines. I don't know exactly how the tax residency rules works like there, but you need to understand these rules so you don't become a tax resident in another country, because they will tax you on your foreign source income. Like I know in Thailand, they're already enforcing a tax residency rule for expats that stay longer than 183 days. Portugal has scrapped the NHR regime. That was something that I was really interested in, and now it's gone. And it's also becoming a lot more expensive, so I don't really want to live there. But that's not even the worst problem. You see, not only is there a risk of you becoming a tax resident in a new country that you move to, but people don't actually exit the tax system they're coming from in the West. So people think that you just jump on a plane and get a new SIM card and voila, you've left the country. And if you were making income, and again, this doesn't apply to everyone because some people are not making any money in their home country and they fly to a new country to try to figure it out. If you have been making income online in the West, in UK, US, and then you try to move to a new country, if you don't thoroughly exit the UK tax system, you are still a tax resident in the UK, even if you try to relocate or think you're relocating to a new country. And once that's happening, you become a double tax resident. And a lot of wealthy individuals make a mistake by doing this. They don't exit the UK tax system and they get taxed there, and they move to a new country and they get taxed there as well. They get double taxed. You can avoid this by exiting the system properly. And this is what we help our clients do at Remote Sovereignty, right? Not only just relocating so you can have global citizenship, but to thoroughly relinquish your tax residency in the UK, in the US, in Europe, where they want to have half of your income. They want to tax you on property that you haven't even sold yet. We help you do this properly, the right way, so you don't have this expensive mistake when you try to leave. Now, the next point is more for my remote workers, those who are working remote jobs in things like HR, sales, marketing. Now, since COVID, remote work has exploded. Everyone now is working a remote job. Even if they're staying in the UK for whatever reasons, I don't know, or the West, they would still prefer. I mean, I would probably decide to work a remote job even if I was living in the UK. I don't like the idea of commuting to the office, getting on that tube like a rat. You know, you've seen those depictions on media about the rats going into the tube. I hated that. I like the idea of working from home. But people often confuse working from home with being remote. And in 2025, companies have now caught up to this. I can't quote this from statistics, but generally speaking, there is a drop in productivity from those who work from home compared to when they work in the office. Quite obvious. When you're at home, you have all the distractions. You have Netflix, you've got social media on your laptop. Most people are distracted, and as a result, productivity has gone down. So companies have caught up to this. Also, a bit of a sneaky thing that a lot of people have done, even I did this at one point, is stacking multiple remote jobs. And it's easy to do because you can just outsource or subcontract the work to people in the Philippines, overseas. And again, big companies, small companies, startups have caught up to this and are now bringing people back into the office, whether it's hybrid or even just full on-site jobs. And it's become a lot more undesirable for people that want to be nomads and want to travel around the world and go to different countries. And furthermore, even if you were working a remote job from the UK, they would still want you to work UK hours or US hours. So you can't get a job in the UK and then suddenly move to Thailand because the time zone is so far away. So even if you wanted to have a remote job, you'll need to make sure that the time zone is perfectly aligned with the location that you're working from, at least like an hour or 2 hours ahead. And then boy, oh boy, as you guys know how much I've been talking about this recently, artificial intelligence, AI, robotics is all changing how remote work is. A lot of the popular remote jobs like becoming a sales development representative or working customer support that still paid good salaries, right? These white collared roles, these keyboard or computer office roles are now being automated, which you might not see the effects right now, right? Because we're just at the verge of, 500,000 jobs this year have been taken by AI, right? And by 2030, it's predicted that 300 million jobs will be gone, right? So it's going to be exponential. AI disruption is here and it is affecting nomads who want to have a remote job and work. So the way forward is to have an income stream that's not only remote, but it's future-proof. And it gives you the global mobility to travel wherever you want in the world. Now, there are very few options that allow you to do this, but your best bet is a remote business. And I know that people will tell you being an entrepreneur is hard and it's risky, and yeah, it's true, but what other options do you have? We may be going into an economy where there will be no more jobs at all or no more white-collared roles at all. So you need to have an income stream that you can have full control over. So all of this is really, really important. And again, this is what we help our clients to do, set up remote businesses so they can have mobility and travel around the world. Okay, let's zoom out a little bit more. And I want you to think a bit more big picture. I know we've been talking about Nomad, which is more like micro and individual problems, but let's look at the world as it is right now and what's going on. If you haven't noticed, geopolitical tensions are rising. The world is a lot more fragile. We could enter a global war at any point. I'm not saying this to fearmonger, I'm just speaking from the truth. Anything could happen. And most people don't understand how quickly things can change. All it takes is one bad event, one change in policy, one civil protest, and everything could go south. And the mindset behind a lot of nomads is kind of putting all your eggs all in one basket, or they have a very short-term mindset. And this is an issue I've personally had because I'm based in Africa now and I have a very Afrocentric outlook in terms of where people should live. But as I've grown older and also experienced more, I'm now having more of a global outlook into where I decide to base myself as a global citizen. Yes, I love staying in Africa, but anything could happen anywhere, and I need to be prepared for the worst. So you want to start looking into diversification. I did this by accident a few years ago by having, at least a company outside of Africa, outside the UK. So worst case scenario, things happen into my UK account or my account gets frozen, which has happened. I can then have a backup account offshore. But even looking beyond that, you want to look at having multiple passports. Look into citizenship by descent. A lot of you are from countries like Spain. I'm Caribbean, right? So the first thing I'm going to do when I go back to UK this year is get myself an Antiguan passport. And for whatever reason you can't get citizenship by descent, or you can look into citizenship by investment if you have the capital. I'm especially interested in Mauritius, which is an island off the eastern coast of Africa. And what's quite interesting is it's actually equidistant between Kenya and South Africa. And what I like about it is very geopolitically stable. So in the likely event that we go into a global war, Mauritius is one of those safe zones that you can relocate yourself and your loved ones and your family to if everything goes south. And you can get residency with a $375,000 investment into real estate, and you get permanent residency, or you can eventually naturalize as a Mauritius citizen. This is how you want to be thinking. And it's quite ironic that a lot of the places in the global south that are politically stable offer an easy pathway into residency and citizenship. And I wish that more African countries would allow this, but I think Africa has enough problems with border control and immigration, so they're not really a big fan of letting more people into their country. And there's also a lot of things about taxing the wealthy, so I guess that's the reason why they're not allowing citizenship by investment. But again, you want to have a global outlook. I know a place like Argentina also offers a pathway into citizenship by investment. So I want you to stop thinking so small. Think a little bit bigger. Have a plan B option, because you never know, anything can happen and you might just need it. And I want you guys to start exploring the concept of being a sovereign individual, or achieving what I like to call remote sovereignty, which means you're not dependent on one government. You're not dependent on a currency, a bank, or any location. If shit breaks at one country, you can move anywhere you want. If a war breaks out, you have multiple bases, you have multiple passports, you've got multiple banking. You are fully decentralized from the system, and you have got full control and autonomy to do whatever you want. Now, it all starts with having a location-independent source of income, where it doesn't matter what happens with your employer or what happens with AI, you can still build wealth and scale it without being dependent on anyone. And if you already have a remote source of income, you then want to start looking at plan Bs, multiple countries, multiple passports, multiple bank accounts. And in this economy, that's exactly what you need. I hope you enjoyed that video, and I'll see you in the next one.